You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the journalist and broadcaster, Jenny Kleeman, and the editor of the Jewish Chronicle, Wallis. But first, let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. A big splash in the Mail on Sunday, reporting that the personal mobile phone of former Prime Minister Liz Truss was hacked during last summer's Conservative leadership campaign by agents believed to be working for the Kremlin. The Star offers a light-hearted take on the story. Lettuce Liz hacked by Mad Vlad. The Observer understands advisers to Rishi Sunak aren't happy that his predecessor, Boris Johnson, plans to go to the COP27 climate summit in Egypt because Mr Sunak doesn't intend to. In the Sunday Times, that decision is criticised by the Prime Minister's former cabinet colleague, Alok Sharma, who chaired last year's conference in Glasgow. Meanwhile, in the Sunday Mirror, there are claims the Prime Minister's leadership campaign was partially bankrolled by donors with ties to fossil fuels. Sky News has approached Downing Street for comment. The Telegraph hears that Mr Sunak wants to stamp out what the paper calls woke policing practices. According to The Express, he has blocked the idea of a £250 million replacement for the Royal Yacht Britannia, put forward by Boris Johnson. And The People pictures Amanda Knox and Raphael Solecito reunited, having been accused of the murder of the British student Meredith Kercher more than a decade ago. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Jenny Kleeman and Wallis. Welcome to you both. Let's start with the Mail. Headline there, Kremlin hacked Truss's mobile. And off the back of this, Labour are calling for an investigation. Take us into this story, Jenny.
Well, it has emerged that Liz Truss's personal mobile was hacked by the Kremlin, by suspected Kremlin agents this summer when she was a foreign secretary during that first Tory leadership contest. And there were exchanges with international allies that may have been overheard and with Liz Truss's biggest domestic ally, Kwasi Kwarteng. There are fears that she may have said some embarrassing things that may have been picked up by the Kremlin. And this was discovered then. Boris Johnson knew about it. The Cabinet Secretary, Simon Case, knew about it. The decision was made not to make this public at the time. Just imagine what it would be like to be a spy or an agent working for MI6 and knowing that the foreign secretary's telephone could be hacked. Wouldn't you be fearing for your safety? I mean, we have also a home secretary that leaks things. So you would be worried if you were in any branch of the intelligence services, I think, reading all of this. It has to be the case that this sort of thing can't happen. Apparently, this phone is so compromised, it's being held in a secure government location, locked away somewhere at the moment because it's such an incredibly leaky phone. Maybe it needs to go to the bottom of the North Sea like Rebecca Vardy's agent's phone because it's such a dangerous thing for our enemies to have access to.
Yes, it's been locked in a safe at the moment, but it's understood that messages which could have fallen into the hands of foreign agents included criticisms that Ms Truss and her future Chancellor, Mr Kwarteng, made of Mr Johnson, Jake.
That's right. There are serious national security concerns coming from this. As you've said, there are some criticisms apparently of Boris Johnson being shared by Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, which, obviously raises fears that she could be open to blackmail, could have been open to blackmail at the time. There are also conversations with her international allies, including, we think, about arrangements for arms shipments to Ukraine. So some quite seriously sensitive, top secret information here that seems to have been achieved, obtained by the Russians via hacking the mobile phone, which is, the soft underbelly of society. Everybody has everything, in their life on the phone. And with the minister, it's very dangerous indeed. So I think the real question here is why it was leaked now. There have been some people raising questions as to why we weren't told about it at the time. But certainly, in my opinion, these sorts of things really should be kept top secret while the intelligence services do their job. and don't advertise the fact that the enemy has achieved these sorts of broaches of national security.
It's also the story covered by the Star, but in quite a different way, shall we say, Jenny. They're continuing this lettuce theme, aren't they?
Well, you know, when you've got a winning formula, why stop? People have been very excited to see what's on the front of the Star ever since it's hit on its lettuce motif, which, of course, is originally came from The Economist, that a lettuce was surviving longer than Liz Truss. But then the Star really took it on board, and now they've managed to combine it with another of their favourite tropes, mad flad. There you have it. They make a joke out of it, but Jake is right. I mean, first of all, it's very serious that this can happen at all, and there has to be a really serious inquiry into how this could happen. Did she click on something? Was something put onto her phone? This should not be able to happen. But also the idea that she could have been blackmailed. She was the prime minister of this country. Did they have compromising material that would put her in a difficult position? You know, we cannot allow this to happen. And whilst the front of the Star is funny, this is really no laughing matter.
Yes, and they are injecting a bit of humour, but even they are suggesting that it is quite serious. Trust us, it's beyond belief, Jake.
Yes, it is. Yeah, no pun intended, is beyond belief. But yeah, I mean, as Jenny says, it's very, very serious indeed. I mean, she's by far the first politician to have been hacked in this way. Internationally, I know of various cases where this has happened, often with very, very high-ranking politicians using a variety of techniques, often aggressive software that's able to access the phone from afar. And, you know, in this day and age, you know, our security services do need to be across this stuff. I mean, it's all very well supporting Ukraine with, you know, all the amazing firepower and resources and expertise that we are. But if we undermine our own position by allowing our mobile phones of our politicians to be hacked by the Russians, it rather goes against what we're trying to achieve.
To the Times, Jenny, and this story about COP27, it seems that it's not leaving Rishi Sunak alone after he's made his decision not to go. Alok Sharma, previous president, the president until a couple of weeks' time of COP26, he's actually come out against Rishi Sunak and his decision not to attend.
Yes, well, Alok Sharma lost his cabinet position in the recent reshuffle. So did the climate minister, Graham Stewart. And, you know, we have to remember that a year ago at COP26, Alok Sharma was crying at the end of it from the stress and the strain of trying to get an agreement through. This is clearly something he cares about very much. And we have a prime minister who has said that he's not going. He has more pressing matters at home. I remember a year ago where there was much consternation in this country, where we were still very much in the midst of a pandemic. There was consternation that Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, wasn't going to be appearing. We expected that. And now, a year on from us hosting COP26 in Glasgow, our Prime Minister says he's too busy with things at home. And what Alok Sharma's saying, which is very interesting, is he's making comparisons with what happened in Australia and the victory of Albanese in Australia, and saying that voters are not going to forgive the government if they show that they are not interested in climate issues. So these are strong words from Alok Sharma. He's clearly aggrieved, but perhaps justifiably so. This is somebody who clearly put his heart and soul into COP26 last year, now no longer in the cabinet, with a prime minister who doesn't think it's worth his time to go to COP27.
Yes, Jake, and he's quotes here, "I'm pretty disappointed that the Prime Minister is not going. I understand that he's got a huge in tray of domestic issues that he has to deal with. But I would say that going to COP27 would allow for engagement with other world leaders. And I think it does send a signal, if the Prime Minister was to go, about our renewed commitment on the issue." Do you agree with that, that it signals to others that it's not top priority for the UK?
Well, I think the first thing to note is that this is quite a heavy criticism from Alok Sharma. Of course, he's no longer a minister, so he's not bound by collective responsibility. But nonetheless, the whole point of the Tory party at the moment, or the main thing they're trying to drive towards, is unity. And this is really the first sort of major departure from that note of unity that Rishi Sunak is so desperately trying to achieve. But aside from that, I think that Alok Sharma does have a point. It does seem very strange for Rishi Sunak not to be turning up to COP27, particularly, as Jenny said, given the high-profile nature of the event last year in Britain. But the strangest thing of all, really, is it doesn't seem to be part of a joined-up strategy on the behalf of Rishi Sunak. On the one hand, he's not going to COP27. On the other hand, he's reversed Liz Truss's full steam ahead with fracking. He's brought the ban back in. So it doesn't seem to be a coherent strategy. Is he against green policies? Is he for green policies? What's his position? We seem to be getting mixed messages here.
Meanwhile, we read in The Observer, Jenny, that the erstwhile Prime Minister Boris Johnson, one but before, is on his way to COP27. He is going to be attending COP27, according to sources that The Observer have spoken to.
Yeah, this is going to be very annoying for Rishi Sunak because it's making him look bad. Here is something that Rishi Sunak says he doesn't have the time for. He's being accused of being myopic. And Boris Johnson is just not going away. His ambition is as big as ever. He wants to maintain his high profile, his global profile. And we know that King Charles is not going to be going, even though he wanted to go. So this will be the most high profile British person walking around in Sharm el-Sheikh. He will get all of the attention. And we know that Boris Johnson wants to run for Conservative leader again. So maybe this is a sign of things to come.
Jake, is this just provocative of Boris Johnson?
I've got to say, I mean, despite the story on the front page of The Observer, I would be very, very surprised if this actually did take place. It would be such a divisive and disruptive move from Boris Johnson. And I think that the results of it would be very unpredictable. He wouldn't necessarily achieve the popularity that he obviously needs if he's going to ever have a chance of being Prime Minister again. And his friends have been saying to journalists recently that he's biding his time. So if the ball comes out the back of the scrum again, he might be there ready to take advantage of it. So I would be surprised if this actually does happen. And don't forget, King Charles, although he's not attending himself, he has announced that he's hosting a reception at Buckingham Palace for world leaders prior to COP27. So he's making, he's making a gesture, and quite a serious one. Those world leaders are going to come to Britain to meet British officials, and Rishi Sunak will be there as well. But yes, for Boris to go to Egypt, I think would be divisive. I would be surprised if it actually does take place.
The paper tells us several sources close to Johnson did not deny that he was set to go, and asked whether Johnson was attending COP27. The Cabinet Office, which is in charge of COP planning and preparation, said it could not answer directly. So watch this space. We shall see whether he attends or not. Jenny and Jake, for the moment, thank you. We are going to take a break. Coming up, is British policing too politically correct? The new Prime Minister apparently thinks so. We'll discuss that next. Welcome back. You're watching the press preview. Still with me, Jenny Kleeman and Jake Wallis Simons. There you are. I thought you deserted me for a second. Right, we're going to have a look at the Sunday Telegraph. And this article is telling us that Rishi Sunak is going to concentrate on law and order, on crime. I'm not going to use the word that's used in the headline because I'm banning it. So you're not allowed to use it either. Go, Jenny.
Oh dear, that's a challenge. Yeah, it's a really annoying word. Officers are criticised for apparently sending police to police social media users or to take the knee. And apparently that's getting everyone up in arms, and that's what's wrong with the police force, not the fact that the various police forces have massive problems with misogyny, with homophobic banter, with the murder of Sarah Everard, Bieber Henry, Nicole Smallman, all of the rest of it. But apparently this example set by Greater Manchester Police of putting more bobbies on the beat and investigating every crime is going to make everything better. And that's what Rishi Sunak wants to do because of the W word. That's what we'll call it. The police are too W. I mean, I would say, I don't think most people think the problem is the police being too right on. I think the problems, there are many, many problems. The new crime figures that came out this week shows how low the charge rate is, and then the number of cases closed because the victim doesn't want to pursue it anymore has risen by 25%. That would suggest there is something about the way the police are doing investigations that is alienating the public, not the fact that they're too busy policing people for tweets. And it's newspapers like this that get very het up about woke policing. I don't think many people really feel that that's why they're not safe, because the police are too busy taking the knee.
The suggestion is that police officers need to get back to basics, and following on from this, police chief in Greater Manchester, who's taken a sort of a hardline approach, which Rishi Sunak has been much in praise of, and that's the suggestion that it needs to get back to old-fashioned policing, bobbies on the beat, and concentrating on cracking crime. Jake.
Yes, Rishi Sunak is seeking to emulate the example of Stephen Watson, the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police, who was able to turn around the force in about 18 months from one that was in special measures to one that was achieving a good standard of policing. And he did that by focusing minds of officers on going out on the beat and persistently pursuing leads of every single crime until they solved them. It sounds pretty obvious. You can call it old-fashioned policing, but I think most people would think of it as simply policing. And I think that Rishi is right to try to divert the attention of police forces away from that sort of virtue signalling, self-branding, I suppose, of wearing rainbow colours and dancing the Macarena, and in the most sinister manifestation of it, policing people's tweets and so-called hate speech or non-crime hate speech or whatever it's called. Of course, Jenny's right that the problems facing our police forces are far greater simply than being a bit woke. There are very many deep problems in the police force, including employing officers who themselves have criminal records,
yes,
who've engaged in some questionable behaviour and bullying and so forth. So it won't solve it, but it will help.
Just time to talk about Liz Truss in the Sunday Times and her list of demands when travelling. Jenny.
Oh, I feel a bit sorry for Liz Truss now. Harry Cole and James Hill have written a book out of the blue, this biography of Liz Truss that had to be hastily rewritten because she's no longer the Prime Minister after 44 days in office. And they reveal her riders whenever she went anywhere. She wanted double espressos, always locally produced, always served in a flat white-sized takeaway cup. You had to take an espresso machine with her wherever you went if you were working with her. You had to have chilled white wine in a fridge waiting for her. No pre-made sandwiches. I read this and I think, yes, it's not that bad. It's not like she was asking someone to take all the brown M&Ms out of her packets of M&Ms. And I feel sorry for her, and I also feel very sorry for Harry Cole and James Hill, who have written this biography of our least successful and shortest Prime Minister in the history of this country.
Indeed. Jake, one sentence from you.
Yeah, I think that book really should be called Back into the Blue, shouldn't it?